All right, let's get started. Good morning again. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Larry DeAngelis, VP of Marketing here at Park Place Technologies, and thanks for joining us today for our webinar, Strategic Solutions to Mitigate the Global Memory Shortage Crisis. I'm sure it's not news to most of you, and that's why we're here, but over the past several months, we've seen memory prices surge, lead times are stretching, and enterprise buyers are finding themselves competing with hyperscalers and others for available supply, all creating quite a bit of tension in the marketplace. The good news, however, is that today we have three guests that are probably better qualified than most to talk about this. So with us today, if my slide will advance. Here we go. We have two great analysts from IDC, Leslie Rosenberg, Research VP Infrastructure, Rob Brothers, Program Vice President, and from Curvature, our hardware division here at Park Place Technologies, we have Sachi Thompson, General Manager of the Curvature business. So with that, I believe I'm going to hand it over to Leslie to kick us off.
Great. Thanks, Larry. And it's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some insights with your audience. So I'm going to set the stage, and then we're going to dive into some details in terms of what we're seeing in terms of the economic impact that AI and AI technologies is having on the market. So IDC is forecasting that we'll see $22.3 trillion worth of monetary impact through 2030. And this comes in a variety of different methods. The first is we're seeing an increase in spending on AI solutions and services, and this is primarily driven by the hyperscalers and the neo cloud providers as they build out AI infrastructure and preparing for enterprise workloads. Along that's coupled with this, we're seeing a couple other interesting dynamics. They have been purchasing fast and furiously over the last 3 to 5 years, which is causing supply chain shortages. So as organizations, enterprise organizations look to think about building out their own IT infrastructure to support AI workloads, they're going to come up into some roadblocks, primarily with regards to shortages on equipment and primarily with memory. But coupled with these supply chain shortages, we also have the challenges with geopolitical issues, with tariffs and costs, and then also along with the geopolitical concerns, many countries are beginning to say, hey, we're going to own our own destiny and begin to build out these sovereign clouds where they can have control for compliance and security and governance over their own data. So there's a lot of different market dynamics that are causing some downstream impacts. And Larry, if you could kindly change the slide. Okay. So let's get real specific on what this means. So we have the good fortune to query end users throughout the year, almost on a monthly basis. And back in January, we asked them how did they felt that geopolitical concerns or geopolitical issues were going to impact their IT budgets. And back in January, 53% said, yeah, we're going to see some impact there. When we queried them again just in March, just 3 months later, almost 10% said we saw a 10% jump of respondents saying that 63% felt that that geopolitical issues were going to have a major impact on their budgets. Additionally, we also saw another number, which I thought was quite concerning, was around hardware supply and export constraints. And in January, 38% said, yeah, it's an issue. That jumped a whopping 15% just 3 months later, coming out at 53%. This is really telling that customers are a little nervous about when they want to move forward with their IT initiatives, especially with regards to AI. They're going to bump up to some serious supply chain issues. But those two jump out significantly, but I want to call out one other. It's, again, rising IT costs from tariffs and currency shifts. This isn't kind of a small issue. Back in January, 63% said that's something they have to figure into their overall IT budget calculus. And even though that declined, 55% still say that it's an issue. That's not a number to scoff at. But along with these other challenges, as if there aren't enough already, we're also going to see a continuing IT shortage, talent shortages, budget pressures that we'll be seeing from AI models as customers look to adopt these models, and also supporting AI workloads. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rob, and he's going to get really into the devil in the details here about where we're seeing challenges.
Yeah, and I also want to kind of point out, if you look at data centers and data center build outs, I really want to stress how important that is. Because even guys like Mr. Wonderful, right, from Shark Tank, he's getting into the data center business. So if you take that and then you add in this whole sovereignty idea, not only we're moving away from not only like those really large 50 megawatt data centers, we're going to be getting these sovereign data centers, which are going to be smaller and located in more areas, right? So that's going to put even more of a strain in the coming future in and around different types of product sets, right? We talk about memory, we talk about GPUs, we talk about racks, memory. I mean, it's the list goes on and on where we're going to see, peripherals and systems become a little bit more difficult to get and also a little more pricey. So with that being said, this is a little bit of what's going on in the industry. I think you all can see, and Sachi can verify this, as well as you customers out there, DRAM surge in pricing from our Q1 of 2026 to Q4 2025, 90% increase. We know that a vast majority of this memory, and it's mostly DDR5 memory that kind of go along with the GPUs, most of that is going to the hyperscalers and the neo cloud guys. And if you could take a look at what their spend was in 2026, it's $650 billion. So you can just take a look at the investment that is being made there. Now, is there an AI bubble? Good topic of conversation maybe for another time. I do feel, it's a little bit bubblish. This pricing also kind of reminds me a little bit of COVID times when we had a lot of the same issues that we're seeing now. So we're not estranged to what we're seeing, but we do expect this to last a little bit longer than what we saw during COVID because of the jump in AI. The earliest we analysts at IDC are seeing is probably around 2028 when this begins to alleviate a little bit. In my opinion, if there is no AI bubble, I foresee this going out probably to 2029, just because of the quantity of data centers that we see in the queue. So if you look at guys like QTS and DRT, these are all large data center manufacturers, as well as the large hyperscalers. Their build outs are forecasted to go out to about 2029. So there's a lot of backlog there that's got to be fulfilled. With that, I'm just going to jump to the next slide and just kind of show that, hey, it's not just, memory prices. It's also going down to devices. I just kind of wanted to point out that, this issue is more broad than just memory. So we're kind of seeing it throughout the PCs, peripherals, and silicon just in general. And with that, I want to introduce Sachi, who is definitely the feet on the streets, if you will, working with customers on a day-to-day basis. So I wanted to bring her into the conversation and kind of talk a little bit about what she's seeing.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. This is really a great topic to discuss at the moment, just because there is a lot of changes in the market around it. Just to resonate with what Leslie and Rob are saying, it is in fact true that this constraint is real and noticeable and longer lasting than we realize. A little bit to clarify, just about our background and me being in the space over 20 years, our brand has kind of been in the secondary space and the know-how of it for the last 40 years. And in 22, there was definitely some supply chain constraints, but it was really around chips and mostly around the networking side of the arena. This really is around the compute and the data center and really impacting a very large install base, which we actually saw the constraint coming into the market about June of last year. And then as we finished the year of last year, we started to notice the OEMs communicating, longer lead times, deal registration constraints. And then really as the kickoff of 26 started, it was very clear that a lot of the products were almost sold out. There was really no ability to confirm any POs that were cut or written or issued to customers in Q4. They were kind of ripping those things up, Rob and Leslie, and really our clients were coming to us with, can you validate that this is truly happening? And two, how can you help us resolve it? And so really what we've done is really just kind of help customers understand what is available on the market, what can they use, and how can they use a strategy towards something like this? Because I do agree this is going to continue for probably the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, and we do have lead times on the next couple of slides that we're going to be able to point out. Yeah, so this is a little bit of what we're seeing right now when it does come to lead times. And like I said, it's not just memory. So if you take a look at processors here, CPU just being your traditional x86 systems, was 8 to 16 week lead time. Now we're looking at 20 to 26 plus. The next one, GPUs, obviously is a little bit funny because that yellow should be up high. For some reason, it's down low. But if you take a look, we're out 32 weeks on the GPU side. And even in some of the ASIC space, we're out 28 plus weeks. Yeah. So Sachi, to your point, we're definitely seeing those lead times from the vendors greatly and dramatically increasing. And we do have a couple of other slides here that we talked to, kind of showing those lead times by the vendors. This was memory and storage. Same thing. Look at DRAM, 65 plus weeks out for memory. So that whole planning process, Sachi, is definitely something you guys can assist with.
100%. It is incredibly disruptive. And candidly, a first time for many people in this space. I think initially everyone wasn't really sure how much AI was going to impact just small businesses, medium and businesses, enterprise, data center. It has come onto the scene very quickly, and the consumption is voracious. I think being in the industry for as long as I have, and many of my counterparts, we've actually never experienced anything like this, which is incredibly exciting, but more importantly, could be a little unnerving. And so a lot of what we really are proud about being able to provide is a solution around this lead times and certain things. That's normal, but what's really clear is, like Leslie pointed out in the beginning, is that the consumption and the market share is being gobbled up by a handful of players, which really leaves the rest of the world kind of in a moment where they've got to scramble to figure out a solution, and we've got a great one for them.
Let's talk about that. Let's see. Can advance the slides. Just showing about, this is a little trip down memory lane. You were talking about networking and the delay times on networking. Well, goes around, comes around, and we'll be enjoying some network lag time here, sadly. And then on the next slide, what can you recommend to customers to do in terms of planning, prioritizing what they're going to upgrade? How should they think about it?
No, absolutely. Thanks, Leslie. Actually, this is kind of a philosophy we found a couple of our top customers engaging in about 15 years ago, right? If you can imagine just different moments in time, there's usually some sort of OEM disruption that causes customers to figure out a new way forward. And it could have been just as simple as 15 years ago, they were just tired of that forced refresh. What really has been something that I've been able to see over the last 15 years, and really the ones that currently during this time and even during the time in 22, customers are just much more aware of their assets and their environments. And those of you who are, you're able to kind of weather through it. So the solution's pretty easy. It's, get very intimate with your environment, know exactly what you want to extend, what's purposeful, what's working that is not an issue, and still providing the workloads needed for businesses. And then you want to upgrade wherever you can. So that's not a full refresh. What we're doing right now is even taking a lot of components that might be one generation back, but filling it with memory and processors at the higher rate so they can provide the same compute and power at a fraction of the cost, especially during this market constraint. And then the third most important thing is to really get an understanding of what you own that's decommissioned, right? You might have assets that are idle. This is a really good time to lean into those and see what value you could recreate from those, either by repurposing them and using someone like Curvature to do that for you in Park Place, or more importantly, getting value back. Then you can take that refresh as your fourth decision tree and really focus those dollars on critical mission environments that will perform the output that the business needs. The real concern, though, is that in the last 7 years, the supply chain markets have been quite difficult to manage. Like Leslie and the team had mentioned earlier, first it was the pandemic, then there was a chip shortage, then it was networking impacted, but then a lot of people were remote. Then we come all back onto the scene and everything's about tariffs and importation and moving goods. It has been a very exhausting 6 years of strategy, right? Now layer in,
just listening to you say that.
and then layering in 26 and this astronomical expense of a 200 unit memory item is now 4x, and budgets are blown out of water. And as all companies are managing this, ours included, this expense caught a lot of people off guard. And so that's really why you have to have a strategy. You can't sit this out. You can't only focus on one area like the refresh. If I'm the newest and latest and greatest, that will solve it. You can't afford it in a lot of cases. A lot of companies really have to make a decision. And really, Leslie and Rob, I feel like the best solution is when, for the first time, a market disruption like this is forcing companies to all be at the table solutioning, right? The beginning of the year was every IT budget was all the funds were moved over to the compute side, which has never
Hey,
happened.
Sachi, we have a first question came in.
Yeah, for sure.
And I suppose it's open to anybody to answer. Are there any discussions with Microsoft to extend support to existing hardware instead of OS going end of life?
So on the Park Place side, we do have a Microsoft support solution that we can offer our customers, but that same question actually goes to all product types. One of the things that Park Place does with the hardware we sell is that they do offer support day one. Because you can imagine, right? Not only are people not able to get latest generation equipment, Leslie and Rob, they need support on it, because if they can't get the server from the OEM, how are they going to get the parts if the server fails? And so we're offering day one support, and then we can extend the life of it far longer than the arbitrary kind of end of life and support agreements that are in place across all platforms, not just Microsoft.
Great.
Yeah,
Actually, another question. Oh, go ahead, Rob.
No, I was going to say, and usually those two are kind of separated also. If you think about hardware support, is usually they'll have the vendors will have an end of life or end of support on the hardware, and then Microsoft, being separate, has an end of support on their versions of software too. So those are generally taken as two separate pieces when we look at them, even from a PC and or from a server perspective.
All right, another question. Can Park Place assist clients with licensing extensions?
Depending on the platform, but absolutely. If you want to, and you'll give our contact information to the audience, Larry, please reach out specifically so that we can help with that.
All right, another question. On this slide, it says to upgrade the memory on existing server. Does that mean the memory upgrade isn't impacted with a chip shortage?
Yeah, no. So luckily, just because of who we are and knowing the market, we saw this coming. And so we cornered the market, both in the memory and on the CTO side for the compute piece. So we've been able to solution and provide that gap, what we're dealing with right now, very efficiently and effectively. we can't solve the OEM supply chain constraint, but what we can do is just continue to work with our clients and provide this circular life cycle management that candidly, that is what our brand brought to the table. And with Rob and Leslie 15 years ago, if you guys remember, it's a new way of thinking. And now it's really kind of the only way. And a lot of clients have adopted the strategy and it works. And it really kind of provides a solution.
Yeah, the whole circular economy and reusability of assets is really bolstered and helped out the industry quite a bit. We do see assets still coming out because if you think about where a lot of the memory is going to come from, it will come out of the hyperscalers, right? And that DDR4 memory and DDR5 memory that does come out does get recirculated. So the nice thing is, yes, from an OEM perspective, it is very difficult, and it's even a little bit difficult in the resale space, depending on the type of memory that you're looking for. But there are avenues in Park Place and Curvature, definitely have solution sets to help, get that memory out of the market, refurbished, and then brought back in. So
that's it. So Sachi, maybe you could talk a little bit about how Curvature Park Place, I think that's a great topic in terms of,
great transition slide.
Great transition coming back in, and how Curvature and Park Place either certifies, refreshes, and ensures that your customers are getting quality product when they're utilizing solutions from Curvature and Park Place.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you can advance the slide, Larry, because it just kind of summarizes it nicely for the group and the audience. Those of you who don't know who we are that are joining today, like I said, we've been in the space for 40 years. So we know the hardware industry really well. And over the last 20, we've really diversified. We were mostly network and campus compute. Now we're fully in the data center. What we really do is that we buy all of the product in the marketplace, both newer and one generation back, and sometimes some even older generations, but we really get an understanding of the entire lifespan of a product type. So we still have, even on the network stack, and Leslie's aware, we've got great workhorse switches that are awesome. We're great for the manufacturing sector. You don't need to rip them out. They're amazing, right? We love the brands we carry too. And so what we do is we just maintain tested, available, ready, predictable product that we can deploy immediately. What's been really incredible about this ownership with Park Place buying the brand 6 years ago is that we've really been able to expand the portfolio offering with a ton of other services that are critical. Right? In order for someone to agree to even take a strategy by bringing in another supply chain of product, it's really important that it's got a maintenance on there that they know without any doubt that it will be available for them, deployable, working, ready to go with an engineer on site to get them up and running. And so those two things really take the risk out of the entire supply chain or decision-making around deployment of a solution like ours. You could really extend your hardware. You have full coverage. We are all over the world. We can deliver parts really at a moment's notice. And then more importantly, our corporate brand has over 2 million assets under support. So we also partner with them to ensure that the spares and the parts they need are there. I think someone mentioned in the chat is it's great to know that we kind of have the market cornered and will our pricing improve on that? There's a lot that goes into a service ticket, as many of you know. And depending on where they are and what they are, I do know that we work very closely with extending whatever affordability we can find in the supply chain. We extend it to our clients. I will tell you, it is challenging though, just as you can imagine, when there is a constrained market like we're sitting in 26, we're buying high as well. That's the bummer. And so really, as things are moving and fluid and dynamic, I think the best way to think of it is we actually have the equipment, and that is the difference, right? Those extended long lead times that Rob was mentioning early can really put a ton of pressure on a project. I can't even tell you how many offices are still opening, campuses that are going live, moves that are happening, data centers that are going live. We are critical infrastructure for those environments, where the OEM unfortunately said, I'm so sorry, this will have to delay your project by 20 weeks. And in some cases, that is not a solution that anyone can live with. And so I'm really excited when customers come to us because the OEM can't supply them what they need. But what really makes me excited is that when they stay with us, and that's really what our brand has been over the last 25 years, is many of our customers who adopt this strategy or put this into play end up being customers for life. It really is something that you need to, and as a supply chain leader myself, it really adds some continuity and consistency in a world where there's variability that you can't predict. And so it's not really meant to be a Band-Aid solution. It's really meant to kind of manage and own your environments.
Yeah,
And Sachi,
Sachi,
you brought up sorry, Rob.
I was gonna say, Sachi brings up a really interesting point, because the vendors and the OEMs are seeing the same issues, especially when it comes to pricing of support and maintenance. They feel the same pains. If you think about the costing model in or around a GPU, we went from an average of like $10,000 for an x86 server to $200,000 for a GPU best x86 server. And if you look at that costing model to support those is gone through the roof. And if you take a look at what NVIDIA is doing and Jensen's model, he wants the 3-year refresh because it's gone back to that kind of old mentality when x86 first came out and when storage first came out. It's like 3 years refresh, 3 years refresh. And we know as an industry that's not sustainable. And that churn of product can't really happen because of the cost of these systems. There's no way you're going to be able to depreciate these assets and get the value out of them in the ROI that's expected, when somebody wants you to refresh that fast. So It's great to know that there are other solutions out there that you can work with to help solve that problem.
Yeah, I think this is actually what I love about disruptive supply chain moments. 22 is very similar, and this year is the same, is it forces customers to find other ways. They have no choice, right? And with that, it just breeds more awareness. And like you said, Rob, there is such a benefit for adopting a model like this. And so, I hope everybody who's on this call listening recognizes that there are solutions out there for sure. And moments like this make people look up and realize that. I think in the last 6 or 7 years, I will tell you, every customer I engage with and interact with, I have thousands of stories of just, wow, I didn't realize this was possible. And I saved so much money. I actually could keep this team that I had on this project, or we did this and we were able to leverage that and we were able to save tons of money. And that's really exciting to be able to do in an industry like ours.
I want to tap into that predictable pricing thread, or the pricing or lack of predictability actually in terms of pricing. And that's something that we're seeing in the market where, we're hearing stories of, well, if this is your price for the next, few days, hours, even on the far extreme. But Curvature has the ability to provide predictable locked-in pricing. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about how you're able to do that. And you just talked about saving money and having cost predictability. That was one of the top concerns that we're seeing from customers. And so you're really addressing a pain point there.
Yeah, and I think really where it comes down to is the extension or life cycle management of that asset, right? Where what Rob was just mentioning, there's just this voracious push to refresh every 3 years, and you just don't need to do that. You don't need to buy a new car every 3 years, right? Or a new phone every 2 years. This methodology and where things are at is just kind of that reoccurring revenue model where they're just pushing for you to just upgrade and get the latest and greatest generation. Where we're able to do this is that we have this sustainability or this underbelly where we just know that this product is going to have a longer shelf life and a longer performance life. And so Leslie, we'll say, hey, use those things, extend those out as long as you can. And then with that, we maintain that pricing structure around those products. Obviously, there are some clients on this call that only need the latest generation. That's really what I was telling you about, that fourth step in that playbook that you want to adopt, is then use those funds for that innovation bucket. But that is not your entire environment. It just isn't.
Right.
No matter how large you are or big, we service all of the customers in every vertical, both very, very large and very small. These macro theories match, they're the same, right? And so that's really how we're able to do that kind of price matching, knowing what's available. We have substitutions, right? I think what happens often is that you might find that this new product release, there's this push to have you adopt it. And, they say, hey, every industry is adopting it. Well, really, when you look at it, that might not be a good fit for purpose for your industry. That's the other thing is don't go into this thinking one size fits all. Be very flexible, challenge the narrative, challenge what the OEMs are telling you need, do a lot of research, enlist a partner like ourselves who are both really, really large and experienced and know what we see. You should, it's funny, we see a lot of those kind of bomb pushes that are the same. And what we say is, hey, this actually will work too. We'll give you 3 or 4 different versions to consider because not all companies are the same. And so that's really where that uniqueness drives a lot of value.
Yeah, and not every workload requires an accelerated GPU. Not every workload needs to go to the public cloud. Sometimes the workload right where it is absolutely fine. Yeah.
Sachi, a question for you.
Yeah.
My company currently has a relationship with PartPlace to sell hardware maintenance services. How can we engage PartPlace to also provide add-on memory and add-on disks hardware to our customers?
Perfect. You tell your PartPlace rep to reach out to our Curvature rep and we will get you exactly what you need. I'll also make sure my information or Larry and the team will provide that to this group. You can email me directly. I talk to customers every day. It's actually how I stay very close to what we do. I stay close to the market. And so it's very easy to do. We'll be able to support you and it's a holistic solution. Really, I think the most important thing and the takeaway is just to realize we have stock, we have availability, we have support, day one support on all the products we sell. We are solutioning things for customers real time every day. It is a booming time for our business, which is exciting, but I'm not lost in the fact that this is also a very challenging financial time for our customers. And so really, the more we know what you need, the more strategic we can be with you. We can enlist that playbook that I said, which is super easy. We just want you to extend what you have, upgrade what you need to, recover what you're not using for some funds, and then lastly, refresh, which most lead with refresh first. And so this really is a solution that if you do this could save millions in the bottom line and provide that uptime and productivity and what you need without a lot of stress to the total system and the environment.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting that last question because I have a lot of friends that are value-added resellers. Yeah, Sachi knows I came out of this market space, and they're beginning to really utilize refurbished assets within even some of their new solutions, like because there is this huge lack of product out there in the market space. They're actually taking some of the new systems and putting refurbished assets in them in order to augment that lead time. So, there's a lot of dynamic ways that you can use refurbished assets in the market space, which I find really interesting. And I've heard that now from a few different players out there, value-added resellers out there, that they are working with the Curvatures of the world to help augment their solution sets also, which I found pretty interesting and dynamic.
Yeah, and that's actually a good thing to point out too, because Curvature is vendor agnostic, right?
Yeah.
We sell all the brands and all the platforms, but we're very intimate with all of them and we know how they perform. And that is our job, right? To really get involved and understand them. The difference of that and what that means to the consumer is that we're not just going to ask you to rip Cisco out and put Arista in, right? Or be a Dell shop, then become an HP shop because all of a sudden they're winning you over with advantageous pricing. We immediately ask, what do you need? What is the compute you're looking for? What are you solving for? What is your team solving for? And then how can we resolve that for you and do that real time? And Will, I see you out there. Hi from Equinix.
For those of you that are partners or are working with a partner, this is a great opportunity to have a really in-depth conversation to understand the health, the viability of your assets, prioritize what needs to be refreshed, and talk about different methods. Not everything has to be brand new, and you want the most cost efficient, cost effective, and available. So it's a really important conversation to have, and we almost liken it, or it's in part not liken it. It's a part of the FinOps conversation in terms of doing the calculus of the value of your assets and how to extend them, not only for performance but also for sustainability as well. So those are all important conversations to have.
And Leslie and Rob too, just to point out for the audience, we do sell like current generation as well. So it will work with you on where those items and those things make sense. Availability on Gen 11 servers, on Gen 10 pluses, what's on there, what do we have, what do we have stock of? That is what's kind of unique too, is that in some cases they do need the latest generation, but what we'll do is maybe take the chassis one generation back and then fill it with new product on the inside, so it provides that same firepower, but at a fraction of the cost, and the availability is there, which is really the component that we're solving for this year, is availability.
Actually, I'm going to address Equinix's comment, which I thought was really interesting. How do I get them back on track? And that kind of goes back to, it's like, hey, let's take a look at your environment. Let's see what is most urgent that might need to be upgraded or replaced or refreshed. And, you know, maybe doing the calculus that maybe a refurbished or new, and do that calculus together. And I think that's a way to continue to have the dialogue with your customer.
I think what's interesting is we're talking about how we're solutioning this for the customer's standpoint, but equally this VAR community, this channel community, this OEM community, this is very disruptive, right? There's a lot of people who rely on this supply chain. And Equinix is a great example where they truly have customers in need of product, and they cannot allow them, or they know they can't afford a price tag that's 5x what they originally solutioned for them. And that's the hard part. That's the part that's causing the distress, Leslie and Rob, is you know, this is a very large ecosystem, right? We love the products we all sell. We're a big part of it. So what's exciting is that you guys have been with Curvature and Park Place for a long time. You know, this is a solution that's proven and worked very, very positively for a very long time. And so what's exciting is that we bring that out to a lot of people, because it is surprising to me that I do run into customers still today that said, oh my gosh, I had no idea I could do this. I had no idea I had the right to do this. I had no idea that license and software actually hasn't been updated in 4 years. And I didn't need the latest generation or this maintenance wrapper that I don't even leverage. So really the key thing here is, when you're also adopting this, you have to also adopt the knowledge and the understanding, and really understand your install base and understand your assets, rather than let someone tell you what you need to do. You got to take ownership of it.
Yeah, and that's super critically important when we think about hardware. You know, the compatibility issue is huge, right? Understanding like, okay, in a ProLiant DL380 G10 box, I can put G9 memory in or G8 memory in, and making sure that that technical expertise is there. And that's what really enables this whole market space, is that technical knowledge of, hey, this will work with this. Yeah. And that is something you definitely need in a multi-vendor situation, exactly. Right? And that's what really is powerful for folks like Curvature, is like, hey, I can not only do I understand some of the new tech, but I really understand some of the older technology and where those compatibilities lay, and I can make some really good recommendations on what to replace, how to replace it, what works with what.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Rob. That is our secret sauce. That is why we have been so successful in the space. We have all latest generation product in our labs. We have all the ability, and we know how they perform in the future, how they perform in the present, how they're performing in the past. That is the differentiation, is that we are very, very savvy around substitutions, the item masters that each of these OEMs carry, what's available, it is not common for, someone to just piece something together and Frankenstein a server. It just isn't
You don't want
possible.
to do that.
And so I definitely have had people try to do that, and all those little gotchas are critical. And that's really why when picking a partner like us, that's the one thing that I love about our knowledge base and what we do is that we 100% say, hey, this is actually the same part ID. It's just this is what it does. This will work. Same manufacturer, just a different sticker on who's selling it. Those are things that are just really important. That's the differentiator for sure.
Sachi, a couple more questions have rolled in. First one for hardware purchases. Does Curvature compete with traditional distributors like TD SYNNEX and Ingram Micro?
We don't compete with them. We actually supply product to them when they need it as well. We buy from them too, as well, in certain categories and areas where we are direct OEM partners of certain products because it makes sense for us to be so for our customers. We are a part of the OEM solution. So I think that's the number one thing to say is we are not the replacement of it. We are 100% an additive to that strategy. They're the refresh part, the last bucket. We're the top three. We're just creating a solution of variability that allows you to do what you need to on the refresh, but not rip everything out and then do it again and do it again. Customers are consumers and customers are very savvy. They don't even adopt that strategy, honestly. Like since the pandemic, since 2020, I rarely run into a customer that says, I'm going to do what Cisco says, or I'm going to do what HP or Dell or Arista says. If they're savvy, they really say, okay, I hear you. This is what I want, but I'm going to just do this. And if you bring us to the table with these OEMs, we all work together. We have a place in this entire ecosystem where we can, at the end of the day, we're all here to support the customer. So that's really kind of the way to think about it is we're not use us or them, we are together. And right now in this time, unfortunately, we really are the solution because there isn't one. But this will catch up. But like Leslie and Rob said earlier, the AI environment, like I said, it's just caught everyone off guard. Like even the data center leaders of the world and the adoption, it has been fast. And we have been talking about it for 4 years. Like, oh, is it going to come? What is it going to look like? It really is a very different dynamic. This isn't just a demand planning issue. This is a very different disruptor that is going to be a little bit longer than just 6 to 8 months, like the 2022 chip shortage outage. It's nothing like it.
It's interesting, Sachi, you brought up the point about the vendors. If we had this conversation 10, 15 years ago, that relationship between, the curvature space and, the refurbished space and the vendors probably isn't as good as it is today. And that's definitely something I'm seeing, which I'm really happy for because I do think there's a lot of synergy there that should continue to progress, in the years to come. Good question. GPU hardware. I know a little bit about. So I know we're seeing H100s. I don't think we're seeing too many H200s yet. I don't know, Sachi, if you've seen any yet, but I think we're pretty close.
Strangely enough, that constrained market is becoming more available on the secondary market this year than it ever has been.
Yeah.
So we see a lot more availability there. The complexity there is the compatibility. So those are very case by case, kind of getting to understand that. But yes, there's more availability on the market and we can absolutely find that for you, procure it for you, or tell you where to go to get it for sure. One thing to just going back to what you said earlier, Rob, just around the OEMs and the VAR community and people like Curvature. I think what's really interesting to point is the size and global scale of Park Place. Yeah. This brand is covering support for not only the data center top 5, 15, echelon groups to the small SMB space down the street in Tennessee, right? So what really is different is in the last 3 years, because of who we are and our presence, Park Place really is solutioning, for these OEMs now, today, as we speak, and that will continue to grow. So I do think as the future kind of moves forward, there is a place for all of these brands to participate, but we are 100% solutioning where there is a gap currently in the OEM space. I think
bring
you'll
up a
continue to
good-
see us grow there.
You bring up a good point. I think moving forward, or we're seeing it today, is the world's going to be hybrid. It's not going to be all you're buying new or all in the cloud or
Yep.
all on premise or all refurbed. It's going to be a combination. And I think organizations that win understand that dynamic and can really really focus on their skill sets and understanding of what's in their environment, the interoperability of their assets and deployment locations, and really become experts at their own environments, and
100%.
turning to a partner like yourselves to really help them think through that and ensure that it's being architected correctly.
100%.
And that's where partners come in. Yeah.
And I
All right,
appreciate that,
well-
Leslie. That's exactly right.
I think someone just snuck in a question. One of the considerations for us is understanding what we give up, if anything, by extending the life of our existing OEM equipment under third-party maintenance, specifically how are firmware updates, security patches, software OS updates, and access to OEM technical support handled? Are there any
Yeah,
limitations or
100%.
trade-offs, et cetera?
Yeah, no, and Miles, we'll definitely get you that and find out, who is on our team to help support you with that. But that's like one of the most critical things we understand is as we partner with you, we got to know your install base, what your issues are, what keeps your team up at night, what are the things you're seeing that are impacting your business, because every business is different. And then we'll come with a recommendation or solution. And I'll be the first to tell you, if I don't think it's a good fit, and I'll tell you, everyone at Park Place would say the same thing, and at Curvature, we won't let you do that opportunity there, or that programming that we think it would be a good idea. We are risk adverse and cautious first, right? We want to deliver and perform and give you a solution. We're not in the business of a quick sale and having you fail. Like, that is just not who this brand is. You have to imagine how we come into this space and what we bring to the table. It only requires us to be brilliant, probably even more brilliant than the OEM at times. I always say to my team, I stay until the baby's born, and I mean it. And so once we get an understanding of how your environment operates and what you can do, we'll definitely let you know all of the issues and concerns you're doing when adopting a strategy like this, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending. We appreciate you spending the time with us, and thanks to Sachi and Leslie and Rob for the great conversation. Hopefully everybody found it enlightening and useful. We will send out a recording of the webinar and the slides to everybody that registered. Feel free to pass those along. We'll include Sachi's contact information, but in addition to that, if you want to follow up with us, if you have a Park Place rep, you can go right to them or go to either the Park Place or the Curvature website and fill out a form, and somebody will get in touch with you promptly. So again, thanks to everybody, and have a great day.
Thank
you.
you
Thanks,
guys
guys.
so
Thanks
much.
for having us.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.